So, good morning or good night, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to another interview of the Shield Dude on a Couch. I'm your host, Hector, and today I'm joined by Dan Emery, and he's one of the part on the duo that's called Thetan. Uh, and they have a new album dropping this Friday, October the 13th, and we're here to talk about it. So, Dan, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. So you're releasing the album this October 13. It's jam packed with a lot of releases. There's so many
Yeah.
music release coming out this Friday. I know because I've interviewed like like five people who have albums coming out this Friday. So yeah, it's a
Yeah.
big
I
Friday.
thought I was gonna be very unique with a Friday the 13th release, and obviously I'm not that clever.
There's releases. I interviewed a black metal band. I interviewed a power metal Christian band. I'm sure the 13 for them is just a pure coincidence. And I
Yeah.
have you guys, and there's a lot of like albums coming out this October. We're reaching the end. Like usually in October, November is where we have like the huge big releases, and I don't know about you, but I think no one should release new music on December. If it's already like it's gonna get buried. No
Hold
one's
out.
going to yeah, no one's hold up to next year because
Wait
no
till
one's gonna
spring.
remember it. You're not gonna be on the end of year list or anything because everything like closes in November. So then I know you're a duo and I listened to the album and it's quite unique sounding because you mix a lot of genres. So the album's called Grand Old Agony. And when I saw the cover, which I'm gonna show soon, I don't know why I thought of that duo, the Bunny the Bear.
Mm,
Like at least
yeah.
not in the music, but like
Right.
the covers, like they did, and plus you're both a duo. The album's pretty interesting. You have a rap vocalist on one of the tracks. You have like a lot of like hardcore and grindcore. It's a 30-minute record with a last song that's a 14, like a 15-minute plus
Yeah.
album closer. And I'm guessing that's the song where you include, I heard some trumpets there. Uh, and you have Mac Gallahan, who I recently also had on the show and he does the trumpets on that track and that track goes all over the place, so it's a pretty interesting listen. So for people that don't know the band, how would you best describe the sound of you guys?
Ugly, uneasy listening.
Yeah, there's also
Uncomfortable music.
elements of, I felt like a lot of elements of also of grindcore
Yeah.
to some of the songs, and so on easy listening. So you guys tell us a little bit about the history of the band. I know you guys formed like in like 10, like 12 years ago. How did
Yes.
you guys meet, and what was when you first got together that you wanted to do musically together as a duo?
So Chad and I, the drummer, and I played in a three-piece hardcore band named Sanctions from, let's see, I joined that band in 2004, and I believe Chad joined in 2008. And we played in that band up until the guitarist got a job on the other side of the country. So when he
Damn guitar
moved,
player.
I know, right? He's still a very good friend of ours. So when he moved to the other side of the country, we discussed the idea of starting something new with just a traditional lineup, finding a guitarist and maybe finding two guitarists or something. And the idea just felt exhausting to like meet somebody new and bring them in and maybe try and start a band with them. And it, it just seemed like a lot of extra work. So we
Sounds
thought it
like
might,
sounds like dating.
yeah, right. Bands are relationships. They absolutely are. So we thought it might be fun to just try out playing as a two piece, where I'll try and compensate for the lack of guitar. I kind of altered the way that I played a little bit. Rather than playing a traditional bass line for every song, I would try and beef it up a little bit, play chords, and just add little extra elements. Like we've over the years had samplers, and we use a Theremin live, just different things to kind of fill out the sound, and it worked. And we were really happy with the way that it was going. That was 2011 when we did that, when we started doing that, and here we are, 12 years and 10 or so releases later. And it's fun and it's easy, because since there's only two of us, the dynamic is very different. It's very much just a personal communication with another person to make the music. It's not a whole big discussion when we make something. If one of us just isn't feeling the direction of a song, we change the direction. There's no real there's no wide array of emotions to go through. Nobody, like, the guitarist isn't going to get his feelings hurt, or this other guy came up with a riff that just didn't make the cut, so he got his feelings hurt. There's two of us, and we can communicate just like I am with you, and then the end result is we have a song. It works out.
Yeah, and there's a lot of like duos now that work in different type of songs. I think the last year I interviewed a band. I think their name is Serling, if I remember correctly, and they did like a Twilight Zone type of like very like noisy sounds as well. But every song was like based on a Twilight Zone episode.
Really?
But yes,
I'm
yes,
gonna have to check that out. I love
yeah.
Twilight Zone.
I'm gonna check the name of the band if I got it correctly, because I know I interviewed them last year. Yes, their name's Serling, and they put out an album last
That
year.
makes sense. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
I'm
because
definitely gonna look that up.
yeah, yeah, and they had an album last year. I think it's that type of style that's very uneasy, and every song has to do with a theme from the Twilight Zone. But yeah, going back to you guys, so I know you have like two previous albums, a few EPs, so this would be your third album release. Tell
Yes.
me a little bit about how you approach this one differently from your for your previous material.
When we started writing this album, with the exception of maybe one song, pretty much all of the writing was done during the COVID lockdown period. So when the whole world was shut down, I was just sitting in my living room playing instruments with my kid, and I'd come up with a riff, and I'd record it on my phone real quick so I don't forget it, and just keep making up riffs. And there was really no we really didn't have an idea as to when we would be able to do anything as a band again, because of just the way everything was. So there was really no pressure to do anything. We didn't have a deadline. It wasn't like we have to finish this album because we got to get it ready for the tour that's supposed to happen. Like, that just wasn't an issue. So it was a very relaxed approach to writing. I was able to spend time really analyzing the stuff that I was making up and deciding if I actually liked it or not. And I found, you learn a lot about yourself during periods of time like that, where you don't really have high expectations. You can just kind of do whatever you want. And I realized that in the past, with writing albums or EPs or whatever we were writing, I would make up something and that would just be the song. My part to the song, at least. I would make up a riff, and that's just the way that the song would go. And I didn't really spend a whole lot of time criticizing what I was playing and saying, okay, well, this part right here could be better, or maybe it just doesn't need to be there at all. And with that period of time, I had that option. I could just sit there and say, well, maybe I don't need to play this part so many times. Maybe I can change these notes around, maybe just take a whole different approach. So I feel that it was a bit more focused than previous recordings. And also, I wanted and I say I wanted, but this was a mutual decision. We wanted to take a different approach than we did on the last album. The last album, when we started writing it, Abysmal, when we started writing it, we wrote it with the intention of just making something pulverizing and just something oppressive and fast and heavy and hard. And so every song on that album, for the most part, just beats you over the head from start to finish. That album is a fast album. It's over in less than 20 minutes, which is great. I think that's perfect for that style of music. But we didn't want to do the exact same thing again. We didn't want to, okay, we're doing a third album. Let's make a third album that sounds just like the second album. We wanted to take it in a different direction. So we slowed things down in some parts of songs.
Mhm.
We stretched some things out, played things that were a little bit more intricate. I think that that's one of the benefits of being in a two-piece band is I can approach what I'm doing in a very unique way because all convention is out the window anyway. I can make up a weird part and we just find a way to make it work. It doesn't have to be like a traditional, like, this is a dun, 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 dun part. It can be something really different and unique. And so we really explored that on this album, being
Especially
different.
with having a 15-minute album closer.
Yeah. That song was so that is probably the only instance of us writing a song in the studio. We didn't come to, when we came to record the album, the 9 previous songs was the album. You know, that was our planned album right there. We had about a 20-minute album written, and then the B side of the record. That song takes up the entire B side of the record.
No,
We
I would imagine it would be like the other part of the record on one side and the last
that's
song.
and that's exactly how it is on the vinyl. Yeah, that one song is the entire B side of the record. And we just kind of started making things up while we were in the studio, mostly just to take a break from doing what we knew we were there to do. You know, we had our list of songs and we would record some of them, and we just needed to take a break and play something different, and we would just make stuff up. And then that kind of developed, and we would just say, okay, well, you know, let's expand on this idea. That song itself probably took as much time to complete as the entire rest of the record.
And it's called Eulogy,
Yes.
that last track. So how long did it take you guys to record the whole album, the whole process?
The whole process probably took about maybe 2.5 weeks to do the entire process, but that was spread out over time. I run a
So 3
studio.
days for the last song.
Pretty much, yes. I own the studio that we recorded in, so we didn't have to section things off and record everything all in one streamlined thing. We recorded the drums over, I think, either a 3 or 4 day period. And then I would do all of my bass tracking. Just, you know, I think that took about a week to do the bass tracking. The vocals, we took a break after doing everything because I didn't have the lyrics completed for everything yet. I actually wrote the lyrics for 9 out of 10 songs while I was out of the country for work. And so I was in a hotel room in Mexico writing lyrics for the album. And it sounds romantic, but it really wasn't. It was I was just sitting in a hotel room with the TV playing muted and racking my brain trying to figure out what these songs are going to be about.
That's yeah, a lot of people like I've interviewed people who have like unique styles of writing. For example, I interviewed a few months ago an artist that he wrote part of the album sitting in a desert. And
Really?
I'm thinking, well, that's nice, but I'm thinking to my head, isn't it fucking hot?
Yeah. I can't imagine that it was a pleasant writing
No,
session.
I would rather write it in a hotel room with some
Yeah,
food service
yeah,
and air conditioning than right or
yeah.
next or looking at a beach. But yeah,
That would be nice.
and you think that would sounded like a very pissed off album, but no, it wasn't a very pissed off album. So yeah, it's pretty unique. And so I'm a believer that sometimes the place where you record takes a life of its own on an album. Like
Yeah,
uh, for example, like would never mind by Nirvana sound the same if they had like do it somewhere else. Like
right.
it's sometimes the place is very important, or like Abbey Road by the Beatles if they hadn't done it on that
Exactly.
studio. So you worked on the lyrics by yourself. So you already had all the music done. So you put the
Yeah.
music and you think to yourself, what can I scream over this music?
Yeah, mostly I would just think about whatever subject was heavy on my mind for that moment. Um, and really just go from there. I think that one of the benefits to the type of music that we play is it's it's brevity. The brevity of it is really important. So um a song, the lyrics don't really look so impressive on a sheet of paper. It might look like, 6 or 8 lines on a sheet of paper. And so I actually try to use that to my advantage to be a better writer. I take the lyrics seriously. I do. Um, and so I'll think about the song. And if a song is only a minute and a half long and I only plan to do vocals over half of that, then I have to think about what it is I really want to say about a certain subject and get the entire point across in that many words. Counting the
Mm,
syllables and making them rhyme. I'm very, very very adamant about making things rhyme in
yeah,
the words or in the
that's
lyrics of the
something.
song.
When I was listening, even though it's hardcore, there's kind of like a subtle hip hop element to you guys
Yeah,
in some of the style that you rhyme, and of course on the lead single, "God's America," you
yeah,
have Crunchy Black of Free Six Mafia. That's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
yeah.
How did you get him to on this type of music?
So I sent an email to his booking agent, hoping that it would get to him. I didn't really have I, I didn't have super high hopes that I would get a response, simply because in the email I explained what it is that I was doing. I explained the type of music and what I was looking for, and um just to see if there was any interest at all. And I didn't hear anything back. I didn't get an email response or anything like that. And then about 3 weeks later, I got a phone call, and it was him. He called me personally, and I wasn't expecting it. I live in Nashville and he lives in Memphis, and that's about 2 hours away. And I run a studio, so it's not uncommon for me to get phone calls from people in Memphis wanting to work with me in
In the
Nashville.
studio, yeah.
And so I got a call from a Memphis phone number, just figured it was somebody wanting to inquire about rates. And it was him, and I wasn't expecting it all. And he was into the idea. And yeah, from there, I just gave him just some small idea of what I was looking for, but I didn't want to dictate what he said. I wanted him to just come up with whatever he wanted to say. He does the monologue at the beginning of the album, and I've
Yeah.
really just wanted him to set the tone for the album, and in the same way that he would set the tone on like the beginning of a 3-6 Mafia song or something. He at the time he hadn't heard any of the album. I don't know if he checked out any of the music. When I sent the email, I of course sent him links to where he could check out what we sounded like, but I don't know if he even listened to it or not. But he understood the assignment. He got it. He did exactly what I was hoping he would do.
Yeah, that's like the icing of the cake, and it's a good
Yeah.
album starter. So, what is God's America about?
So God's America is about the unhinged, untethered patriotism that a lot of people in America have, that goes over the border of just outright hate.
Hmm.
Um, the the bloated American ego, where people feel that we're better than you, and we stand above everyone else. And it's a very disgusting ideology. And for years, ever since I was a teenager and actually started thinking about these things, it's always bothered me that, especially in the South here in America, there's just an ignorance to patriotism. Um, there's some people, I'm sure, who could justify loving their country, and that's great. And I think that everybody should be proud of where you're from and proud of who you are and the people who have come before you. But I also think that you have to do that with an understanding, especially in America and especially in the South, that there is a lot of negative baggage that comes with that. A lot of really bad things had to happen for us
Hmm.
to be where we are today. And so to go through life with the blinders on to that and still consider yourself better or more entitled than the rest of the world is comically gross. Like there's a humor in how ugly that ideology is,
No,
but that
yeah,
humor comes with a price.
I agree. I've used to live in Florida and I've been in the States, and you know, I've experienced like racism, uh, like just because when I'm a pretty pale Puerto Rican. Well, obviously, when I speak, you can tell that I have the accent. So yeah,
Yeah.
I've experienced that first. I'm not in Miami because Miami, like, it's like oh, it's like a mixture of Miami is almost it's like if you speak English, they'll look at you weird because it's almost Spanish everywhere. But outside of Miami, yeah. But yes, I know exactly how you feel. Yeah, because yes, it's kind of like a you can be patriotic and love your country, but there's some extremes to it. So yeah, it's a great album opener. It's good that you got the guy from Free Six Mafia to be on it, because I remember they were huge in the 90s. Like that's a
Yeah.
name that I'm like, yeah, I remember that name in hip hop. I I truly believe that the 90s had the best music ever in all styles.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
we're from the 90s. Yeah, and
Right.
like everyone's like the 80s. I'm like, were the
No,
80s that
no,
great? There was a lot
no,
of crap in the
no.
80s. I think,
There was a lot of garbage in the 80s.
yeah, I think the 90s,
Polished turds.
yeah, I think the 90s was the most special time in music ever, because like there was so much variety. Like you had like ska, you had metal, you had hip hop, you had electronic music, you had so many things like being popular, even some great pop music. So I when I think of the 90s, I think yeah, that's the my favorite type of music. So so yeah, so that's a great track, and I'm gonna show the artwork, which is pretty cool. I already talked about the artwork, and I said the bunny, the bear. So this is the artwork for Grand Old Agony, and I know I read who worked on this artwork, but I can't remember the name. But tell me a little bit of what you're trying to convey with this artwork. Obviously, that bunny looks evil as fuck.
So the art was done by Kristen Farrell, and that is a painting that she made not specifically for our album, but I love this painting. And I reached out to her to see if I could get her to do a commission of something similar to it. And her schedule wouldn't allow commissions. She's a very, very busy woman. But she was open to letting us use the artwork, use the painting that I actually really liked for our album cover. So I jumped at the opportunity for that. But I think that the artwork gives the same kind of vibe visually that we were seeking to do sonically. I wanted something that it conveys kind of a creepy, almost perverted beauty. It's it's got its beautiful elements, but the overwhelming theme is just vile and kind of it's kind of violating in a way. You know, you see that there's innocence being tainted on the cover.
Oh yeah,
And
it's you look at it and it's pretty striking. So the next time my kids tell me I want a bunny, I'll just show them this.
show them that.
No,
Which one would you like? Which bunny do
and
you want?
and then they will be scarred for life. No, but
Yes.
yeah, it's a pretty, it's pretty cool album artwork, and it's like, you have bunnies are pretty, but yeah, there's like a beauty and evil to this. So yeah, plus the artist gets recognition. So yeah, that's a great painting,
Yeah,
and
she's
it makes
amazing.
for a
She's done
yeah.
some very awesome, not even just albums. I mean, she's done some amazing album covers like F minus Wake Up Screaming is such an incredible just it feels schizophrenic. The album just feels it makes your blood pressure rise. There's just something about it. But just her paintings in general, she's a very versatile artist. She's incredible. Highly advised. Kristen Farrell, for everybody listening, go check out her artwork.
No, great artwork, yeah. And obviously the last track, Eulogy, you added trumpets to it, and that's a track that it plays with a lot of spacings. This is 15 minutes, and obviously hardcore and grindcore music is not known for like super long songs. So
Mhm.
that's a yeah, you have lyrics on there, but it's like you space them out.
Yeah.
When you were doing that, how did you get in touch with Mac for the trumpet? Did you always want the trumpet on? Like, I'm like, this song
Yeah.
needs trumpet, like it's in like the half of the
So
song.
the song kind of just developed out of just uh natural progression. Like I said, it wasn't written for the album, it was written through the album. And so all of the people that are guest features on that song, there's a few of them, they kind of they were asked to be on it based on the direction that I felt the song was going. Mac is incredible. I run a mastering studio. That's the type of audio that I focus on most of the time. I occasionally do just typical standard recording, but most of my professional work is post production and mastering. And I had a couple months earlier mastered one of Mac's albums, and so there was a loose contact with him professionally just through that. Mac is seemingly a great guy. I've never hung out with him, so he's probably way cooler than me. So
Oh, I talked with him, and he's got some great stories.
I bet.
Like he played on a David Bowie album.
Yeah. I mean, I
Like,
can't I can't step to his reputation. He is definite. I am so grateful that he even considered being on my little album. He's a he's definitely a much higher echelon than I am as far as musicianship is concerned. So I asked Dave Brenner, who's also on the album. He has a project called Grid Failure. I asked him if he wanted to add something onto the song, because this, as you said, the song is very open and spacious, and
yeah.
it plays with dynamics. And the middle section of the song, the approach that I wanted to take for that is I wanted it to have just kind of like a asymmetrical, amorphous aspect to it. I didn't want it to have any real structure that could be charted out. I wanted it to just kind of flow in a natural way and sound natural. I want people to listen to it and not feel like it sounds awkward, but not have something that feels scripted. And so I asked Dave if he wanted to contribute, and he was absolutely into it. And I brought up Mac since I had recently worked on his album, and Dave was actually the go-between between me and Mac. And Dave talked to Mac because they're friends, and Mac was into it. So I got Dave and Mac on the album, and it far exceeded what I wanted to achieve with that section of the song. Like, they really, really brought it to that song. It was great.
But now that's a song that you can't play live.
No, actually, we've discussed it a little bit. I bet we could pull it off.
Yeah,
I bet we could pull it off. It would be hard without the guests, but add an extra theremin. Put 2 theremins on the stage. We'll fill the void somewhere.
How did you get into the theremin? Because it's a very unusual instrument.
So a few years ago, we did a collaboration with hip hop MC Kool Keith. And Kool Keith is one of my favorite rappers. Aside from 3 6 Mafia, he's one of like the most commonly listened to MCs in my car, at least. So we were working on a record with him, and we were looking at what different sounds we could incorporate into that, rather than just being straightforward aggressive sounding bass and drum. We wanted to add something that threw people off our scent a little bit, and made them maybe forget that it was a 2-piece hardcore band playing behind a rapper. And so we started playing around with the theremin. There's a lot of keys on that album. Some interesting.
I'm showing the theremin, so people that have like, what the fuck is a theremin?
Yeah.
Is that the thing you play that with passing the hand, right?
Yes, the antenna that sticks up controls the pitch, and the one that's off to the side controls the volume. And so the closer you get to the pitch antenna, the higher pitch it goes, and the closer you get to the volume antenna, the quieter it gets. So if you keep your hand far away from the volume one, then it's just constantly going to make sound if you're getting close to the pitch one. And when we play live, that's how we typically use it. In the studio, I'm a little bit more restrained with what we're doing, and we actually really try to make some tasteful parts. But live, it's not as reined in. It's kind of hard when you're playing bass as well to be thinking of another melody or anything really.
I've been talking a lot about the theremin lately because Roger Waters did the Dark Side reimagining, and he used it a lot. And we talked about that album, which is terrible. It's a terrible. He killed the Dark Side of the Moon with that album. Just an atrocious record. But yeah, on your record, yeah, it's pretty interesting because when I think of like hardcore and grindcore, I don't think of the theremin. I think like more like psychedelic stuff. But yeah, like it's pretty cool that you use it in a way that enhances the music. And I had to show it because I'm sure a lot of people have no fucking clue what a theremin is.
Yeah. So when we use it, I try to think of it in the same way that I would think of if I were just trying to control feedback. Like if I had a bass or guitar that was just ringing out feedback, how would I try to control that and make it work with whatever is happening in the song that we're doing or in between the songs? And that's the approach that I take to using that. So it's pretty loose and abstract. I would never consider myself a theremin virtuoso. I'm sure there's somebody out there who can play the theremin on the most ridiculously precise level, and they would see my my theremin chops and laugh, and rightfully so.
Like here now we're gonna do a Theremin solo. You're like,
Yeah, yeah.
so you
They'd see me
recently,
and laugh.
yeah, I don't think, yeah, that would go that well. So you recently had an East Coast tour, I think,
Yes,
with label mates, Armageddon Time.
yes.
So tell us a little bit about the tour. How did that go?
It went good in most cities. Some of the shows were, I guess, we just didn't have, um people didn't know who we were. I mean, we're a
That happens
fairly
sometimes, yeah.
unknown band, so you really got to convince people to come out in some of those cities.
Yeah, I'm sure, but yeah, but you gain new people as well.
Oh yeah.
So the album's coming out on October 14th, and I'm gonna put the link for people can pre-order. You're gonna have it on vinyl, uh, CD, cassette as well.
No plans for cassettes right now, and the CDs are on hold. So
So LP.
LP and digital definitely on the 13th, and then other formats to follow later, depending on if there's really interest in them. CDs are such a hard sell. Easy to
I
get
know
made, but does anybody buy them? That's a constant question
there's
I'm asking.
almost. I think cars now don't have CD players, so
I know people
I
just
know.
listen to it streaming. So
Yes, or streaming. Well, vinyl has made a resurgence. So, so what's next for T10 after you release the album?
writing new stuff. We are thoroughly sick of these songs. No, we were it's funny because Chad and I were actually talking about this last night. We're gonna start writing some new stuff. We've got some plans for something special that we want to put together. I don't want to jinx it just yet by saying too much about it, but we have an idea of something to do next, and we're gonna start putting some music together for it. See where
Awesome.
that takes us. And if
That
it
sounds interesting.
fails, then we'll just use that material for something else.
Yeah, and maybe on a live show you'll have like a Theremin face-off.
Yeah.
Two guys in a Theremin who will be the most skillful.
And we'll stare each other down super intent, and people will walk out because they'll be really bored with us. It was like, you guys were already losing our attention. This is just too much.
Too much. So Dan, it's been great meeting you and talking about
Thank
you
you.
about the album, and it's an album that it really, when I talk like hardcore, like grindcore albums, usually like they keep like a formula, but this is an album you experiment like on the last track, and you
Mhm.
add some hip hop elements to it. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. So for people who don't know the band, I'm gonna post the link so people can get the album and. I'm guessing, do you have a music video on YouTube, right, or something?
Yes. Yeah, we just released a video for the what was going to be the closing song on the album, which is actually just the closing song on the A side of the album. Note to Self is the name of the song. We just released the video for that a few days ago.
I'll post the link so people can watch that video. So people, Thetan, it rolls out sometimes that out of my tongue. Difficult. The new album is coming out this Friday. Here it is, Grand Old Agony. So if you like your hardcore, grindcore, like fast, pummeling music with some experimentation, check them out. And I'm guessing that you'll do a few like local shows in the next months, right?
Yeah, we've got local and some just basic regional stuff lined up just in the short term, and we'll plan some more sophisticated stuff here in the next little bit.
Awesome. So yeah, I'll post the link for everyone who's interested in following them on their socials and stuff. So until next time, people, it is Hector, the Shield Dude on a couch, and I'll see you all right here on the couch. Thank you and good night.